Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales and her royal family. We provide you with the exciting news: William and Catherine cut all ties with Prince Andrew after shocking scandal at Duchess of Kent's funeral. In the middle of the solemnity of a royal burial, a moment of stark silent drama occurred in the hallowed halls of Westminster Cathedral. This moment laid plain the terrible division that exists at the core of the House of Windsor. The event was the ultimate goodbye to the cherished Duchess of Kent, which took place on September 16, 2025, a day that was designed for respect and meditation after her passing. Nevertheless, it will be remembered for a single terrifying interaction or lack thereof that has forever transformed the landscape of the British monarchy. This experience will be remembered for a long time. Rumors about a long-standing conflict between Prince William, the heir apparent to the throne, and his uncle Prince Andrew, Duke of York, who is now facing a lot of difficulties, had been circulating in the hallways of the palace and on the pages of tabloids for many years. The tension, which had its origins in scandal jealousy and a fundamental conflict over the destiny of the crown, had been the topic of a great deal of conjecture. During that dreary morning in September, speculation gave way to the fact that could not be denied. As the members of the royal family came together, a collective intake of breath was almost audible. This occurred when Prince Andrew, a figure who had been virtually isolated from public life, aimed what a number of witnesses characterized as a chilly and penetrating gaze at Catherine, the Princess of Wales. In response to the gesture, which was packed with years of wrath, the future king and queen did not respond with a reciprocal gaze or a timid acknowledgement. Rather, they responded with a wall of silence that was impossible to break through. The next action that Prince William took, or more accurately, the actions that he did not do, sent a message that was more robust than any royal proclamation. It was a public and definitive disavowal, a moment that has rattled the very foundations of the royal family and given a clear peek into the reign of the future King William V. It was a moment that has shaken the very foundations of the royal family. One must trace the fractures back to their source in order to comprehend the intensity of this quiet struggle. The cause of the fractures is a bitter mixture of personal slights, public dishonor, and a war for the soul of the monarchy itself. The following is the narrative of how a private conflict turned into a public spectacle, and how a single icy glare at a funeral may have been the last straw that decided the destiny of Prince Andrew for all time. A funeral and a last fracture are the events that took place. A moment that was defined by a calm dignity that echoed the Duchess of Kent's own life was the burial of Catherine, who was the Duchess of Kent, until her death. The Duchess of Cambridge picked Westminster Cathedral because of its relevance to her Catholic religion. The cathedral was filled with subdued flower displays and the quiet, sorrowful melodies of an organ prelude throughout the ceremony. For a lady who had chosen to live a life of modest service, rather than the trappings of monarchy, the tone was one of respectful grief. When the senior royals came, they did so with the proper manners. With a solemn look on his face, King Charles III took his position at the head of the line. The palace cited a slight sickness as the reason for Queen Camilla's absence, which resulted in Princess Anne sitting next to her brother. Her stance as an example of royal calmness was maintained throughout the whole event. A heightened level of silence prevailed as the Prince and Princess of Wales arrived at the royal residence. Princess Catherine, who was dressed elegantly in a black coat dress and a veiled hat, exemplified the elegance and composure that have made her a cornerstone of the contemporary monarchy. Prince William, whose posture was serene and secure, walked with a quiet authority. Their attendance was anticipated, but the appearance of Prince Andrew and Sarah, Duchess of York, who had previously been his wife, was not. The fact that Andrew was there came as a surprise to many people who follow the royal family, since he has been essentially withdrawn from public activities since 2019. There were others who believed that King Charles's decision to include him was an act of familial kindness, a recognition of Andrew's standing as a brother and a member of the family, even if he was not a working part of the family. Despite this, his presence instantly brought about a discernible undercurrent of tension that was present throughout the somber ceremonies. Throughout the whole of the ceremony, which ended with a heartfelt performance of the Duchess's favorite hymn, "Abide with Me," Prince Andrew gave the impression of being uncomfortable. Observers who were sitting close said that he made a number of discreet efforts to interact with family by leaning forward to catch an eye or offering a whispered remark. There was a courteous but forceful refusal to comply with each and every effort. The heads continued to be bent in prayer, concentrating on the order of service that was being performed. At such family events, the normal nods and fleeting grins that are passed between members of the family were noticeably lacking in his direction. A social quarantine was implemented in the most public of situations, and it was a communal rebuke that was silent and unobtrusive. As the ceremony was drawing to a conclusion, the time of essential importance came. Andrew moved his position somewhat closer to the aisle, where William and Catherine were standing as the congregation stood for the last blessing. This occurred when the crowd was up on their feet. His goal seemed to be crystal clear: to coerce them into interacting with one another in order to close the gap that had developed between them. It was at that moment that he turned his attention to the Princess of Wales. Instead of a quick glimpse, witnesses described the gaze as a chilly stare that lasted for a considerable amount of time. It was devoid of any feelings of warmth or remorse, and in its stead came an unsettling intensity that one observer subsequently referred to as a death stare. It was a face that seemed to bear the weight of perceived slights and a deep-seated animosity. As he stood steadfastly next to his wife, Prince William did not show any signs of flinching. The look on his face became a mask of stoic control as his eyes continued to be locked on the altar. There was not the slightest sign of recognition on his part, not even a little flutter of his eyes in the direction of his uncle. Catherine maintained a posture that was identical to that of her husband, remaining completely motionless. Her presence served as a quiet reinforcement of their unified front. William then made a little movement that was almost imperceptible, laying a protecting hand on the small of Catherine's back. This was a gesture that conveyed both direction and guardianship between the two of them. This was a proclamation that was made without words: "We are one, and you are on the outside." The quiet that seemed to hang between them was more damaging than any debate that was spoken in public. Being so completely and publicly neglected by the heir to the throne was the ultimate humiliation for a man who has spent his whole life being identified by his status and the etiquette that he has followed. Following the leisurely procession of the coffin of the Duchess of Kent down the aisle, William and Catherine followed in close proximity, their steps being metered and synced with one another. They were followed by Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, who were walking behind them at a visible distance. A striking representation of the emotional and political chasm that currently characterizes their relationship was provided by the physical distance that separated the two sets of people. The occurrence did not come to an end there. Later on the same day, Andrew was caught leaving his royal lodge house in a Range Rover, which was a public display that seemed to be rebellious. This action astonished royal critics. After the confrontation with the priest, there was no indication of regret, and there was no gentle withdrawal. A great number of people regarded the deed as a manifestation of his terrible lack of self-awareness and disdain, not just for the Prince and Princess of Wales, but also for the memory of the Duchess, whose life of humility stood in such sharp contrast to his own behavior. A conflict of wills, jealousy, and scandal are the driving forces behind the rift. This hostility, which manifested itself in such a prominent manner during the burial, did not emerge overnight. As a result of a combination of Prince Andrew's precipitous fall from favor and his purported envy of the Prince and Princess of Wales's rising popularity and important position in the monarchy, it has been gathering steam for years. It has been driven by a combination of these two factors. Andrew Loney, a royal biographer and author of The Fall of the House of York, asserts that a significant event took place in the aftermath of Queen Elizabeth II's death in the year 2022. Loney alleges that Prince Andrew made a series of cruel and insensitive comments about Catherine at a time when the family was supposed to be coming together in shared sorrow and making the transition to a new era. According to reports, the remarks were tinged with animosity at her growing fame and the increased position she would occupy as the next Princess of Wales. This is a title that is loaded with importance and was most recently held by the cherished Princess Diana. Loney said that Andrew seemed resentful of Catherine's rising prominence, which suggested that the Duke of York thought that his own daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, were being unjustly ignored. According to the allegations, he made fun of Catherine's history and voiced his resentment that she, who was born into a commoner's family, was now one of the most senior and respected individuals in the institution, while he who was a prince of the blood was considered an outcast himself. These claimed words were more than simply an insult for Prince William. They were a serious breach of his trust in him. When it comes to the massive duty of guiding the monarchy into the 21st century, Catherine is not only his wife and the mother of his children, but she is also his most trusted collaborator. His perspective is that she is indispensable to the continued existence of the crown, and that her dignity, discipline, and popular appeal are invaluable assets. A strike against her, particularly one that came from inside his own family, was a strike against him, and the future he is working to construct for himself. At that very moment, it is believed that whatever remaining admiration or affection that William could have had for his uncle vanished. Already stretched, the connection was completely severed. The public controversies that Prince Andrew has been involved in provide a tragic background against which this personal hostility is placed. There was a time when the Queen's second son was a well-liked and captivating figure. He was once a famed war hero who fought with distinction as a helicopter pilot during the Falklands War. But his image started to deteriorate as a result of a string of terrible decisions, the most disastrous of which was his affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sexual criminal. When the story reached its lowest point, it was a horrible interview with BBC Newsnight that took place in November of 2019. The purpose of the interview was to clear his reputation, but it ended up being a disaster for public relations. Andrew's answers, which included his weird allegation that a medical problem rendered him unable to sweat, and his claim that he could not have been at a nightclub in London with his accuser Virginia Giuffre, since he was at a Pizza Express in Woking, were received with widespread mockery and incredulity of the situation. Although he expressed sorrow for his relationship with Epstein, he did not demonstrate any empathy for the people who were affected by Epstein's actions. A quick and severe backlash ensued as a result. There was a decisive shift in public opinion working against him. In a move that was unprecedented in its harshness, Queen Elizabeth II removed her son from his royal patronages and military ties in January of 2022. It was no longer acceptable for him to use the title His Royal Highness in any official capacity. The hit was so devastating that it virtually put an end to his existence in public. Andrew, despite this, has apparently continued to hold on to the notion that he would come back. According to reports, he is of the opinion that given enough time, the general people would forgive him, and he might be able to resume some kind of official job. This is the point at which he has come into direct confrontation with the uncompromising attitude of his nephew Prince William, and to a lesser extent his brother King Charles. There is no way to get around this. When a king is divided, his heir is determined. Given the circumstances surrounding the Andrew problem, King Charles III has been faced with one of the most challenging problems of his reign. He is caught between his affections as an elder brother and the duties that come with his position as king. Charles is Andrew's lifelong friend, and he has seen both his successes and his failures throughout his whole life. There are sources that claim that behind the scenes, King has provided discreet personal assistance. It has even been alleged that King has provided a loan to assist Andrew in financing the multi-million-pound out-of-court settlement with Virginia Giuffre. This action had the effect of preventing a civil trial that would have been very humiliating. In spite of the significant harm that was done to the monarchy's prestige, this conduct indicated that the personal relationship that exists between the brothers continues to sustain itself. Charles, on the other hand, is painfully aware of the harm that has been done to the institution. The legitimacy of the crown is dependent on the confidence of the population and the perception of its integrity. It is now common knowledge that the name Andrew is connected with controversy and a feeling of entitlement to impunity. He is aware that he cannot give the impression that he is approving of his brother's history or that he is ignoring the public's demand for accountability. Consequently, this has resulted in a delicate and sometimes uneven act of balancing. Charles has been leaning toward a degree of tolerance since he is of the opinion that fully isolating a member of the family is futile and that there should be a way to achieve some type of private redemption, if not public rehabilitation. Prince William, on the other hand, has a dramatically different and more realistic perspective on the issue. When it comes to the Prince of Wales, there is no possible space for negotiation. According to him, the capacity of the monarchy to portray an image that is contemporary, trustworthy, and duty-oriented is essential to the monarchy's continued existence. He is of the opinion that Prince Andrew is a poisonous liability, and the simple fact that he is in such proximity to the throne undermines that effort. Any effort to bring him back, even in a modest role, would be a disastrous mistake of judgment, inviting new waves of criticism and reminding the public of the institution's greatest flaws. This would be the case regardless of the nature of the endeavor. Due to the fact that they take different approaches, the king and his successor have been experiencing a tension that is not overt but persists. There have been furious meetings that have been detailed by insiders, during which William has made his stance as firmly plain as possible. Andrew will never return to the forefront of royal responsibilities as long as he has a voice in the matter. Following William's accession to the throne, Andrew will continue to be located on the periphery of the royal family. This resolution has been expressed in ways that are not overt but are still meaningful. Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson were noticeably missing from the guest list for Catherine's Together at Christmas carol service, which took place in December 2024 and was an event that celebrated community and generosity. Despite the fact that the message was not formally explained away, it was quite evident that William and Catherine would not let Andrew's attendance cast a shadow on an event that was so intimately associated with their style of compassionate monarchy. In a similar manner, Andrew was present for the Easter service held at Windsor in the year 2025. However, the Prince and Princess of Wales, together with their children, were not there. Many people believed that William had made a conscious decision to avoid being photographed beside his uncle, despite the fact that it was possible that it was just a coincidence. The people in William's inner circle do not see his attitude as an act of personal vengeance. Rather, they view it as an essential and merciless act of institutional preservation. Due to the fact that he has methodically constructed his own image around the principles of family duty and responsibility, he considers Andrew's actions to be a direct contradiction to those principles. Not only did the claimed statement about Catherine serve as the last straw, but it also served to corroborate his perception that his uncle lacked respect, not just for his wife, but also for the very institution that he desired to represent. A contrast. Analysis of the Duchess's contributions to the world one must have an understanding of the lady who is being grieved in order to have a complete comprehension of the egregiousness of Prince Andrew's behavior during the burial. It is precisely because of this contrast that William's quiet censure was filled with such great moral weight. The life of Catherine, Duchess of Kent, presents the ultimate contrast to Andrew's existence. Catherine Worsley was born in 1933 to a family representing the landed aristocracy of Yorkshire. Nevertheless, she was not born into royalty. Her environment was filled with music, the natural world, and a peaceful childhood. The year 1961 was the year that she married Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, who was a cousin of Queen Elizabeth II. Subsequently, she diligently began her life as a working royal. Her timid and modest temperament, on the other hand, was not designed to withstand the unrelenting scrutiny of the public limelight. The decisions that the Duchess made were what made her stand out from other people. In 1994, she took the very personal choice to convert to Roman Catholicism, becoming the most senior member of the royal family to do so in centuries. Her decision was celebrated globally. She did it with deep conviction, not for the purpose of gaining public attention. She then made the even more extreme move of stepping back from royal responsibilities in 1996 to become a music teacher in a public primary school in Hull. This was an even more significant departure from her previous life. It was more than a decade before she was simply referred to as Mrs. by her students and the majority of their parents. According to Kent, she did not find pleasure in palaces and patronages. Rather, she found it in assisting youngsters from disadvantaged situations in discovering the joy that music can provide. In 2002, she went even farther and requested that she not be called by her title of Her Royal Highness. She expressed a desire for a life that was less complicated and formal. The culmination of her efforts was the establishment of the charitable organization Future Talent in the year 2004, which offers financial assistance to talented young musicians who come from homes with poor incomes. She left behind a legacy that is characterized by unselfish devotion, humility, and a remarkable absence of controversy. The Duchess of Kent was a shining example of calm dignity at a period in which the royal family was reeling from the effects of divorces and public disagreements. This is the legacy that Prince Andrew's actions have brought into disrepute. Andrew clung to luxury in contrast to the Duchess, who decided to practice humility. If she was able to walk away from titles, he was able to have them taken away from him in a humiliating manner. In contrast to her, who devoted her life to providing service that was both discreet and significant, he became synonymous with controversy and entitlement. His icy gaze on Catherine, his smirking demeanor, and his attempts to force himself into the center of a day of mourning were not only an insult to his family, but they were also an insult to the memory of a woman who exemplified the very best of what it means to be a royal. During that particular moment, Prince William felt that protecting his wife was inextricably linked to defending the principles that the Duchess of Kent represented. A defense of a monarchy that is founded on service rather than inheritance alone, his unwavering and quiet position was a defense of the monarchy. It was a proclamation that in the House of Windsor that he plans to construct, there is no room for those who bring disgrace to its name and dishonor the heritage of those who have served it with elegance. A line was drawn in the sand by Prince William as he was amid the peaceful atmosphere of Westminster Cathedral. Duty, respect, and the future were all on one side of the argument. Prince Andrew, a specter of the monarchy's history, was standing on the other side of the room. He had irreversibly and finally been abandoned in the cold. It is possible that the reign of Charles III is a narrative of a family that is going through a difficult transition. Yet the message that his successor is trying to convey is quite clear. The reign of William V will be one of standards and accountability, and there will be no seconds. A beginning, not an end, was marked by the hush that prevailed throughout the burial. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and goodbye for now.